close your eyes for a moment. When you open them, the light is wrong. It is a low, copper-colored dawn, and the air against your face is warm and heavy and smells faintly of resin, wet clay, and something sharp underneath, like a struck match. You are standing at the edge of a clearing, ankle-deep in soft black soil, and the clearing is full of shapes, dozens of them, long-bodied animals, each about the length of a small car, all lying perfectly still, all turned sideways, in the same direction, toward the rising sun. And from every spine rises a sail, a great fan of skin stretched over bone, glowing translucent red where the light passes through it, so that the whole clearing looks like a field of paper lanterns left burning after a festival. Nothing moves, nothing sings. There are no birds on this planet yet. There is no grass beneath your feet. There is not a single flower anywhere on Earth. And the question arrives quietly, the way the best questions always do. What would it feel like to stand here, to breathe this air, to learn which of these animals would ignore you and which one would follow you into the trees? What if you could walk into the world that came before the dinosaurs and simply look around? What if you could explore the Permian period? Let's begin where you are standing, because you have arrived at the single best hour of the day to understand this world. The animals in front of you are not resting. They are charging. Each of those sails is a living solar panel, a web of skin held open by bony spines that grow straight up out of the backbone, some of them longer than your arm. Blood moves through that skin in fine channels, and as the sun climbs, that blood carries warmth down into the body. The animal that catches the light first is the animal that can move first. And in a world where almost everything is cold and slow at dawn, moving first is everything. The nearest one is a dimetrodon, 3.5 meters from nose to tail tip, roughly the weight of a large motorcycle, low to the ground, with a heavy skull and a mouth you can see the edge of even from here. Picture a crocodile that has been rebuilt with longer legs and given an enormous sail. And you are close, but here is the detail almost nobody expects. This is not a dinosaur. It is not even a relative of one. Dimetrodon disappeared millions of years before the first dinosaur ever existed, and on the great family tree of life, this animal sits on your branch, not the reptile branch. It is a synapsid. So are you. If you traced your ancestry back far enough, past every mammal, past every furry thing that ever hid in the dark, you would arrive at something that looked a great deal like the creature warming itself 20 steps away from you. You can see that kinship in its teeth. Open a modern lizard's mouth, and you find a row of near-identical cones. Open this one, and you find a set, small nipping teeth at the front, then 2 enormous curved daggers, then a row of shorter blades running back along the jaw, different tools for different jobs. In the same mouth, that is the beginning of your own smile. Its name even says it. Dimetrodon means 2 measures of teeth. Stay very still, because one of them is waking up. The sail closest to you shivers. The animal shifts its weight, exhales through its nostrils in a short, wet snort, and the sound carries farther than you expect in this quiet air. Then it rises, not quickly, but with the deliberate heaviness of something that has decided. Its belly lifts off the soil, its head swings low and level, and it walks past you at a distance of perhaps 15 meters without a flicker of interest, because you are the wrong shape, the wrong smell, and standing still. That is your first real lesson here, and it will keep you alive for the rest of this journey. In this world, almost nothing recognizes you. There is no ancestral memory of humans. You are not prey, not rival, not threat. You are simply a strange, upright object that has not yet done anything worth reacting to. Now look to the far side of the clearing, where the sails are smaller and paler, and the animals have not bothered to move at all. They look, at first, like more of the same. Same low body, same fan of bone and skin. But the head is wrong. It is absurdly small, almost comically small, a blunt little wedge on the front of a barrel-shaped body. And if you could get close enough to look along the spines of that sail, you would see something strange growing out of them. Small crossbars, short horizontal knobs, sticking out sideways from each rod, like the rungs of a ladder or the cross trees on the mast of an old sailing ship. That is a Dilophosaurus, and it eats nothing but plants. Its teeth are blunt pegs, not blades, and there are more of them growing on the roof of its mouth, forming a rough, grinding plate. The body is round because it has to be. Permian vegetation is tough, fibrous, low in nutrition, and the only way to survive on it is to carry a long fermentation chamber inside you and let time and bacteria do the work. So it eats and lies down and waits and eats again. Learn to tell these two apart in a single glance, because from a distance, the silhouettes are nearly identical, and getting it wrong matters. Big head, sharp profile, sail without crossbars, keep your distance. Tiny head, round body, ladder rungs on the sail, harmless, and if anything, nervous of you. There is one more thing on both of these animals that you will not notice until you are standing above a skull, and it is one of the strangest details of the entire Permian. There is a hole in the top of the head, a small, perfectly round opening in the bone between the eyes, and in life it held a pale, light-sensitive organ, a third eye, not an eye that formed images, but one that read the sky, the length of the day, the strength of the sun, the slow turning of the seasons. It set the internal clock. It told the body when to slow down and when to breed and when to prepare for the dry months ahead. Nearly every large animal you will meet in this period carries one. Some lizards still do today. You almost certainly have the descendant of it buried deep in the middle of your own brain, a small gland that decides when you feel sleepy, though the window in your skull has long since closed over. The clearing is warming now. You can feel it on the back of your neck, and the first thing you should understand about this air is that it is thinning, historically speaking, in a way that will matter enormously before this story ends. The Permian began around 299 million years ago and lasted roughly 47 million years, which is longer than the entire history of primates. It inherited an atmosphere from the coal swamps of the age before it that was extraordinarily rich in oxygen, close to 30% against the 21% you are used to. Here, near the coast, in the early part of the period, breathing feels good, almost too good, deep, easy, faintly intoxicating. Your fingertips tingle. Hold on to that feeling, because it does not last, and neither does the world that depends on it. And while you are breathing it, listen, really listen. The strangest thing about this place is not what you can see. It is what is missing from the air. There is no bird song, because there are no birds. There is no rustle of leaves in a canopy of broad green trees, because the forest around this clearing is made of tree ferns, scaly primitive conifers, and horsetails as thick as fence posts, and their foliage is stiff and waxy and clatters rather than whispers. The color palette runs from dark green to brown to ochre and stops there. No red berries, Nothing has evolved a flower yet, and nothing will for another 100 million years. What you hear instead is a low, dry insect hum, the creak and pop of drying wood, and, every so often, a deep grunt or a long hiss from somewhere out of sight. That is the entire soundtrack of the Permian. It is not silence. It is something heavier than silence. And after an hour, your own footsteps start to sound impolite. Something moves at the tree line, not a sail. Something lower and wider, dragging itself out from beneath a fallen trunk, with its belly still flat against the ground. It is small, perhaps the length of your forearm, dark and damp-skinned, like an amphibian, and yet along its back runs a short crest of blunt, bony spines, a miniature ridge of armor plating. It is called platyhystrix, and the fact that even a soft-skinned amphibian in this period grew a crest on its back tells you how relentlessly useful that design was here. It blinks at the light, takes 3 slow steps into the open, and freezes. Not because of you, because somewhere behind you, in the horsetails, something has begun to breathe. Slow, deep, deliberate breaths spaced far apart at the height of your shoulder. Do not turn quickly. Turn the way the animals here turn. Slowly, one shoulder at a time, and keep your hands low. The horsetails part, and what comes through them is not a predator. It is a head, and the head is the size of a washing machine. Blunt, square, heavy, set on a neck so short it barely exists, with small eyes placed high and wide, and a mouth full of leaf-shaped teeth, still working on a mouthful of fern. The body behind it is worse, in the sense of being much more than you were prepared for. 5 meters long, shoulders higher than your chest, a torso shaped like a barrel that has been overfilled and then reinforced. Put a rhinoceros beside it, and the rhinoceros looks athletic. This is Moschops, and the reason it does not care that you are standing 4 meters away is that in its entire life, nothing has ever meaningfully threatened it from the front. Look at the top of its skull. There is a dome there, a raised, roughened boss of bone, and beneath that surface, the bone is extraordinarily thick, up to 10 centimeters in places. That is not armor against predators. Armor on the forehead is not where you put protection from a bite. That is a helmet built for hitting other Moschops. Wait here long enough, and you will see why. 2 of the larger animals drift toward each other across the clearing, not charging, not roaring, just closing the distance with a kind of mutual, deliberate patience. They stop with their heads perhaps a meter apart. They stand, they breathe. Nothing happens for a long time, and you begin to think nothing will. Then both animals rock back and slam their skulls together. The sound is not a crack. It is a dull, enormous knock, like a tree trunk dropped onto a road, and you feel it through your feet before you hear it. Birds would scatter, if there were birds. Instead, the sound simply rolls out across the clearing and dies in the ferns, and the 2 animals stand there, foreheads pressed, pushing, feet churning up the soil, until one of them takes a half step backward and the argument is over. No blood, no chase. The loser walks away and starts eating again within a minute. That is how disputes are settled here. And the 10 centimeters of bone in the forehead are the only reason both animals get to walk away at all. To hold the scale of this thing properly in your mind, try it this way. A large male Moschops weighs somewhere in the range of a small car. Its head alone weighs more than you do. Its stomach is a fermentation vat, large enough to break down vegetation, so tough and so poor in nutrition that a modern cow would starve on it, and it has to eat, by volume, an amount of that vegetation every day that would fill the bed of a pickup truck. There is a smaller shape moving in the shadow of the herd, and it is worth watching for a moment. A young one, perhaps the size of a large dog, with the same square head scaled down until it looks far too big for the body, wobbling slightly at the knees. It stays close to one particular adult. When that adult moves, it moves. When that adult stops to strip a frond, it pushes its face into the same frond from underneath. Whether Permian animals cared for their young the way mammals do is one of those questions the fossils only whisper about. But standing here, watching a calf refuse to be more than 2 body lengths from its mother, you would find it very hard to believe the answer is no. Which brings you to the real scale problem of this world, and it is not the animals, it is the land. There is only one continent here. All of it, every landmass on Earth, has been shoved together into a single supercontinent, Pangaea, curled around the equator like a letter C, and around it lies one single ocean, Panthalassa, covering most of the planet. Stand where you are standing, and in principle, you could walk from what will one day be Brazil to what will one day be Siberia without ever once seeing salt water. No sea to cross, no strait, just ground and more ground for thousands upon thousands of kilometers. That geography changes everything about the weather. On the coasts, moisture comes ashore in violent monsoon seasons, torrential and brief. But go inland, far from any ocean, and no moisture reaches you at all. The interior of Pangaea is the largest desert the Earth has ever known, a continental heart where the temperature can climb past 45 degrees Celsius in the afternoon and then fall toward freezing by the middle of the night in the same 24 hours on the same patch of sand. The animals here are not built for speed, they are built for endurance. In a world with almost nowhere to hide, you see that principle taken to its absolute conclusion later in the morning when you follow the herd out of the trees and onto open ground. There are shapes out there, low and wide and immobile, and at first you take them for boulders. They are not boulders. They shift. They are grazing Scutosaurus, 3 meters long, built like something poured rather than grown, standing on short pillar legs set directly beneath a body so broad it seems to have no waist at all. The skin is studded with bony plates, osteoderms, embedded like cobblestones across the back and flanks, and the skull carries a fringe of blunt spikes and knobs that flare outward from the cheeks and jaw, giving the whole animal a permanent scowl. There are horn-like projections beneath its eyes. Its ribs are so wide, the entire torso is nearly circular in cross-section, and it is slow, genuinely, remarkably slow. Watch one walk, and you will understand something important about the Permian. It does not run. It cannot run. There is no version of this animal that outpaces anything. It has traded every gram of speed for defense, and its entire survival strategy is a single sentence: I am too much work. A predator that attacks a Scutosaurus is choosing to bite through cobblestone armor into a body the weight of a small hippopotamus, while that body simply stands there and keeps chewing. Most predators do the arithmetic and go find something softer, seen in a group, spread across the plain, 20 of them together, jaws grinding in unison, The effect is exactly like watching a row of armored vehicles parked in a field, slowly eating it. There is a detail on that armor you would only notice up close, and it is easy to miss. The bony plates are not smooth. They are pitted and grooved with channels that, in life, carried blood vessels close to the surface, which means the armor may also have served as a heat exchanger, dumping warmth in the afternoon and collecting it in the morning. Nothing in this period does only one job. And then there is the thing nobody warns you about, which is the sheer number of small animals living underfoot. Turn over a fallen log here, and you will find cockroaches the size of your palm, flattened and glossy, older than any dinosaur, and incidentally, still recognizable enough that you would name them correctly on sight. There are primitive beetles, long-bodied millipedes, and dragonfly relatives whose ancestors, only a few million years earlier, had wingspans as wide as your outstretched arms. Insects are everywhere in this world, and their constant dry hum is the closest thing the Permian has to birdsong. By late afternoon, the heat has flattened everything. The moschops have lain down in the shade of the tree ferns, with their legs folded beneath them. The Scutosaurus have not moved at all, because moving costs water, and water here is a currency. You follow the trampled path the herd has cut through the vegetation, because trampled paths lead to water, and you can smell it before you see it, that cool mineral smell that arrives just before a river does. The river is wide and brown and moving slowly, edged with horsetails, and the far bank is thick with vegetation. Along the near shallows, small amphibians scatter as your shadow reaches them. You crouch, you cup your hand, and in the moment before your fingers touch the surface, you notice something out in the middle of the channel. A line of ridges, barely breaking the water, spaced far too widely apart to be one animal. Except that they are. They are moving together, slowly, upstream, and the distance from the first ridge to the last is longer than a city bus. Take your hand out of the water, slowly, then take 3 steps back up the bank and keep your eyes on the ridges. They have stopped moving. In a river, that is worse than movement. Movement means the animal is going somewhere. Stillness means it has decided that where it is going is here. What is lying out there under the brown surface is Prionosuchus, and to understand it, you have to abandon everything your instincts are telling you about what an amphibian is. Forget the frog, forget the newt in the garden pond. This animal is 9 meters long, and it is the largest amphibian that has ever existed on this planet, before or since. Its body is long and low and flattened, built like a heavy paddle, with a tail that runs almost half its total length and drives the whole animal forward in slow, deep sweeps. The skull is over 1.5 meters of narrow, tapering bone, ending in a snout so slender it looks fragile, lined the entire way with fine, sharp, backward curving teeth. If you have ever seen a gharial, the fish-eating crocodilian of Indian rivers, you already know the shape. Now stretch that shape until it is longer than a city bus, and give it the wet, glossy, unarmored skin of a salamander. That combination is what makes it so difficult to look at. Nothing alive today mixes those two ideas. And here is the part that ought to stay with you. The bones of this animal were found in Brazil, in the northeast, in the ancient rock of the Parnaíba Basin, in a formation whose name translates roughly as the Firestone, where today there is dry scrubland and heat and cactus. There was once a tropical river system so vast and so productive that it supported a 9-meter amphibian at the top of its food chain, It hunts by patience, not by pursuit. That narrow snout has very little water resistance, which means it can be swung sideways through the river far faster than a broad head ever could. The animal does not chase, it waits, angled just under the surface, and when a fish or a smaller amphibian drifts into range, the head snaps sideways in a movement too fast to follow, and the thin teeth close, like the tines of a trap. You will not be hunted here, most likely. You are too large and the wrong shape for its usual arithmetic. But you are standing in the shallows, and the shallows are where the arithmetic changes. There is a sound, not a roar, a sudden, enormous displacement of water, a sound like a heavy door slamming underwater, and then the ridges are gone, and there is a bow wave coming across the channel. Do not stand and watch it. That is the mistake. Turn and go up the bank at an angle, away from the waterline, through the horsetails, and do not stop for the first 10 strides. Your feet slide in the wet clay. Something behind you drives up into the shallows in a burst of spray and mud, and you feel the ground shake in a way that ground should not shake for a creature with a salamander's skin. Then it stops. It does not follow you onto land. It cannot, not really, not at that size, not for more than a few heaving lunges. Its body is built for water, and its legs are almost an afterthought, splayed and short, capable of pushing it through mud, but never of carrying 9 meters of animal across open ground. You stand there among the horsetails, with your heart going, and 40 meters away, a vast dark shape slides backward into the current, unhurried, and settles until only the ridges show again. That is the second rule of this world, and it is even more useful than the first. Almost everything that can kill you here is tied to a particular kind of ground. Learn the ground, and you are mostly safe. The river belongs to that animal. The bank does not. Sit down, breathe, and once your hands are steady again, look at what is happening in the quiet water at the river's edge, because you nearly missed something extraordinary. There are shapes moving in the shallow, sunlit water over the sandbar, and they are the strangest animals you have seen yet. They are about 1 meter long, small, soft, gently modeled, and their bodies are unremarkable. Their heads are not. Each head is a broad, flat, backward-swept triangle, wider than the body, with 2 long bony horns projecting out and back from the skull, until the whole animal looks as though it is wearing an enormous boomerang, or a stealth aircraft, or a delta wing, cut from bone and covered in wet skin. This is Diplocaulus, and the head shape is not for show. Water flowing over that broad, angled skull generates lift, exactly as air does over an aircraft wing. A Diplocaulus facing into a current can tilt its head slightly and rise off the bottom without a single stroke of the tail, hanging in the flow, then tip forward and settle again. It costs almost nothing in energy. In a river, being able to hold position without effort is a superpower. There is a second advantage, and it is more practical. That head is very wide. Wide things are hard to swallow. A predator with a narrow snout, of the kind currently lying 40 meters away, pretending to be a log, would have a genuine problem trying to get a Diplocaulus down its throat sideways. Watch them for a while, and they become strangely endearing. Small eyes set close together on top of the head, pointing upward, giving them an expression of permanent mild surprise. Slow, undulating movement. Now and then one settles into the silt, and vanishes completely, leaving only the two horn tips and a pair of eyes showing above the surface, waiting for something small to swim past its face. Further along the bank, in the drier sand above the waterline, there is something else worth crouching for. It is about 60 centimeters long, stocky, with a broad, flat head and legs held out sideways, and it is walking with real purpose across ground that is completely dry. That, in this period, is a technological achievement. Its name is Simoria, and it sits almost exactly on the line between amphibians and the animals that would leave water behind forever. Its skin is thicker and less permeable than an amphibian's. Its limbs actually lift the body clear of the ground. It can spend a whole day away from water without drying out, and it has a very modern-looking problem, solved in a very modern-looking way. Living in dry, salty ground means taking in more salt than the body wants, and there are structures in its skull that suggest glands, which excreted the excess through the nostrils. Marine iguanas do the same thing today, sneezing out crusts of salt onto their own faces 260 million years apart. The same problem, the same answer. You will see that pattern over and over here if you look for it. The Permian is not a rehearsal for life. It is life already solving, in full, most of the problems it will ever solve again, which raises a question you have been quietly avoiding since you arrived, and the river is the place to answer it. What, in this world, could you actually eat? Not fruit, there is none, and there will not be for 100 million years. Not grass, not grain, not a single edible seed head of the kind that feeds most of humanity today. The plants around you are tree ferns, horsetails, seed ferns, and early conifers, built out of tough fibers and defended with resins and oils, and almost all of them would leave you sick or hungry, or both. The seeds of some seed ferns are large and starchy and might be roasted if you were desperate and lucky. The soft-growing hearts of certain horsetails are chewable. That is close to the whole list. Everything else you eat here has to be pulled out of the water, freshwater fish, and there are plenty. Heavy-scaled paleognathids flickering over the sandbar, lungfish buried in the mud of drying pools, breathing air through their swim bladders while they wait for the rains. Cook them over conifer wood, which burns hot and smells of turpentine, and you will have eaten the only meal the Permian is willing to offer you. The light is going amber now, low and flat across the water, and the temperature has begun to fall faster than you expected. Out in the channel, the ridges have submerged. Along the sandbar, the diplocaulus have drifted into deeper shade. The insect hum has changed pitch. And inland, away from the river, where the vegetation thins into open reddish ground, you hear something new. A whistle, short, sharp, repeated twice, and then answered from somewhere further off. It is a small sound, deliberate, the kind of sound an animal only makes when it is warning other animals that something is coming. Follow the whistle. It means something worth suing is about to happen, and it means you have about a minute to get there before it does. The ground changes fast as you leave the river. Within 200 paces, the horsetails thin out. The soil turns from black to a dull brick red, and the vegetation drops to a knee height. Scattered low seed ferns, holding on in the shade of one another. The heat comes up off the ground now, instead of down from the sky. Your footsteps stop squelching and start crunching, and the surface in front of you is full of holes, dozens of them, spaced a few meters apart across the open ground, each one a neat oval opening, about as wide as a dinner plate, with a fan of loose earth spread out below it. Some have small trails worn into the dirt leading away. It looks, unmistakably, like a colony. Then a head comes out of one. It is small, no bigger than a grapefruit, and it is one of the most peculiar faces in the whole Permian. There is no snout in the way you expect. Instead, there is a horny beak, like a tortoise's, blunt and sharp-edged. There are no teeth in that beak at all, except for two, a pair of short tusks, one on each side, jutting downward past the lower jaw. Above the beak sit two round, dark, forward-set eyes that blink at you with what looks a great deal like personal opinion. This is Dictodon, 45 centimeters long, plump-bodied, short-legged, with heavy shoulders and forelimbs built for one purpose, which is moving soil. It is standing upright at its burrow mouth, front feet resting on the rim in the exact posture of a meerkat on sentry duty. It whistles again, twice, and 3 more heads pop up out of 3 more holes across the colony. You will not find a more successful land animal in this world. Dictodon fossils turn up in staggering numbers across what will one day be southern Africa and China, hundreds and hundreds of individuals, which tells you 2 things at once. There were enormous numbers of them, and the way they lived meant they died in places that preserved them. That way of living is underground, and it is the reason for everything about their bodies. Dig one of these burrows out, as paleontologists have, and you find something remarkable. The tunnel does not run straight. It descends in a wide spiral, a corkscrew going down through the earth. And at the bottom, it opens into a chamber. Sometimes 2 adults are found curled together in that chamber, preserved exactly where they died, which strongly suggests they lived in pairs. The spiral is not decoration. A straight tunnel lets heat and dry air pour in. A corkscrew traps a pocket of cool, humid air at the bottom that barely changes across the whole day. Up here on the surface, the temperature swings brutally between afternoon and midnight. Down there, 1.5 meters below your feet, it stays almost constant. These small animals solve the climate of Pangaea by refusing to live in it. They come out to feed in the cooler hours, cropping low vegetation with that sharp beak and probably digging out roots and tubers with the tusks, then retreating underground before the heat or the predators arrive, which is what is happening right now. Every head has vanished. The colony is empty. Nothing moves anywhere on the open ground. And the silence is so complete that you can hear the wind moving grit across the crust of the soil. Something is coming through the low ferns to your left, and it is small. That is the first surprise. You have been trained by 2 days here to look for large things. This animal is perhaps 40 centimeters long, low-slung, narrow-shouldered, moving with a smooth, deliberate, weaving gait that is almost hypnotic to watch. Picture a weasel that has been rebuilt with reptilian skin and a heavier, blunter head, and you are close. Its name is Eucymbersia, and it is one of the most quietly alarming animals ever found in the fossil record. Look at its face, if you can get an angle on it, behind each of its 2 large upper canines. The skull has a deep, wide hollow, a pit excavated into the bone, and grooves run from that pit forward along the surface of the tooth. There is only one arrangement in nature that looks like that. It is the architecture of a venom gland and a delivery channel, and this is among the oldest evidence for a venomous land vertebrate anywhere on Earth. 255 million years before the first snake, something on this ground had already worked out that you do not need to be big if you can be chemical. It reaches the edge of the colony and stops. It does not go to a burrow. It settles down beside a well-worn trail, flattens its body against the red soil, and becomes completely still. Minutes pass. The wind moves. Nothing happens. And then, 40 meters away, a beaked head rises cautiously out of a hole, checks the sky, checks the ground, and hauls itself out into the open to feed. The strike is not a chase. It is 3 fast strides and a bite, and it is over before the sound of it reaches you. What follows is the part that tells you everything. The predator immediately lets go and steps back. It does not wrestle. It does not hold on. It simply waits, a body length away, while the animal it bit staggers, turns in a half circle, and sits down. That is how venom works. Patience, applied chemically. There is something else about this small hunter that is easy to miss and hard to forget once you know it. It is not a reptile. It belongs to the therocephalians, one of the branches of the same great synapsid family that includes you. And if you could put your hand on its back, you would not find scales. You would probably find skin, warm and slightly leathery, possibly with the beginnings of hair around the muzzle. The animals in this landscape that most resemble mammals in their behavior are the ones that are distantly becoming them. Stay low as you back away from that scene, because there is a wider pattern here you should notice, and it explains an enormous amount about the Permian. Almost every predator in this world is solving the same problem: how to get at prey that has gone somewhere you cannot follow. Some solve it with poison. Some solve it with reach. On the far side of this period, in the older river valleys of what will become Texas, there was an animal that solved it by rebuilding its own face. Secodontosaurus carried the same tall sail on its back as its relative Dimetrodon, but its skull had been stretched and narrowed into a long, thin blade of a snout, packed with fine teeth, ideally shaped for pushing into a crevice or a burrow mouth and pulling something out of it. It is worth remembering, as you cross this ground, that the Permian is not a single afternoon. It runs for 47 million years, and the animals you have been meeting are separated from one another by spans of time longer than the entire age of mammals. Walking across the Permian means walking across deep time as much as across land. The sun is going down now, and the temperature is falling in a way that would frighten you if you did not know it was coming. Away from the coast, out here in the open, the ground gives back all its heat to a clear sky within an hour. By the middle of the night, the same soil that burned your hand this afternoon will be cold enough to make you shiver. Down in their spiral tunnels, the Diactodon are already sealed in warm, still air, curled in pairs, entirely indifferent to it. Above you, the sky is doing something you have never seen in your life. There is no light pollution anywhere on this planet, no dust from any engine, and the stars come out in a density that feels almost aggressive, a wash of them from horizon to horizon, bright enough to cast a faint shadow from your own hand. And the moon, when it rises, sits noticeably larger than the one you know, because it is closer, still drifting slowly outward, still pulling the oceans of this world into tides higher than any you have stood in. You are watching it clear the tops of the distant conifers, when something crosses in front of it, not a bird. There are no birds. It is a flat, wide, angular shape, and it is not flapping. It is gliding in a long, silent line from one treetop toward another, and it passes across the face of the moon in less than a second. Walk toward the trees. It is colder than you expected, and the ground crunches under your feet, and there is enough starlight to see the shapes of things, but not their edges. The forest here is not tall in the way a modern rainforest is tall. The canopy sits maybe 20 to 30 meters up, and it is made of primitive conifers with narrow, spiky, scale-like needles mixed with tree ferns, whose fronds spread out in flat, stiff crowns like green satellite dishes. Below them, seed ferns and horsetails fill the gaps. The whole structure is more open than a jungle, more organized than a swamp, and the ground beneath it is deep in fallen needles that give off a sharp, resinous smell when you step on them. Stop, because something is moving in that litter, and it is the reason you should never walk through a Permian forest at night without listening first. It is small, about 40 centimeters long, squat and wide-bodied, with short legs held out to the sides and a broad head that seems to be mostly face, and on each side of that head, just behind the jaw, there is a disc of tight, drum-like skin so large, it looks almost comical. Enormous ears out of all proportion to the animal. This is Cacops, and it is a hunter of sound. There are no owls in this world, no bats, nothing else that has learned to work the dark by listening. Cacops got there first. Those huge eardrums, set in deep notches in the back of the skull, are tuned for airborne sound, which is a genuinely new trick in this period. Most amphibians before, it heard mainly through vibration in the ground. This one hears things flying. Watch it work, and it becomes obvious. It goes very still, angles its head slightly, and holds. A dragonfly relative clicks past in the dark. The head turns 3 centimeters. It waits again. Then it takes 2 quick steps and snaps, and there is a brief, dry rattle of wings, and it settles down to swallow. Run a hand along its back, and you would find a second surprise. There is armor there, a double row of overlapping bony plates set into the skin along the spine. Small and tightly fitted like the scales on a pine cone, an armored amphibian, no bigger than a cat, hunting insects at night by ear. That is the Permian in a single animal. The cold deepens toward the middle of the night, and by the time the sky begins to gray out in the east, you are stiff and hungry and glad of the first warmth on your face. Look up. The canopy is starting to move. There are animals up there, and they are very small, maybe 30 to 40 centimeters, and they are running along the horizontal branches with a confidence that stops you. They are not scrambling. They are not clinging. They are moving hand over hand. And the reason becomes obvious when one of them pauses directly above you and reaches out for a frond. It has fingers, long ones, and the first digit stands apart from the rest, opposing them, closing on the branch in something that is unmistakably a grip. Behind it, the tail curls around a stem and takes hold. This is Suminia, and it is doing something no vertebrate on Earth has ever done before. Nothing had lived up in the branches like this. Nothing had needed to. For 300 million years of vertebrate life, the treetops were the exclusive property of insects. Then this small, round-eyed, chisel-toothed herbivore climbed up into them, developed hands that could grasp, and a tail that could hold, and started eating the leaves nobody else could reach. It is the oldest known tree-dwelling vertebrate with a grasping grip, and it is doing it roughly 200 million years before the first primate ever swings through a branch. Its teeth are worth a moment too. They are broad, leaf-shaped, with serrated edges, and the upper and lower rows meet and shear past each other with real precision. That is a chopping mechanism. It is not swallowing leaves whole and letting its gut do the work. Like the huge animals down on the plain, it is processing food in its mouth, which is a fundamentally mammalian way of eating, appearing here in a creature the size of a squirrel in a conifer canopy. They were found in large numbers together in the same block of rock, dozens of individuals, which raises the possibility that they lived in groups. Watch them long enough in the early light, and it certainly looks that way. Several animals working the same branch, one pausing to scratch its flank with a hind foot, another descending headfirst with slow, deliberate care, tail wrapped twice around the wood. And then, from a branch higher up and off to the right, one of the strangest sights on this planet, an animal steps out onto a bare limb, turns, spreads itself, and jumps. It does not fall. It sails in a flat, straight, silent line, dropping slowly across a gap of 15 or 20 meters before flaring at the last instant and landing on a trunk with a soft scrabble of claws. That is Coelurosaurus, and it is one of the first vertebrates on Earth ever to travel through open air. It is small, 30 to 40 centimeters, counting the tail, slim, with a long neck and a strangely ornamented skull, its rear edge fringed with a serrated frill of bone. But everything about it that matters is on its flanks. When it is at rest, they look like nothing at all, just loose folds against the body. When it launches, dozens of thin bony rods fan outward from the sides of the torso, opening a taut membrane of skin into two broad, flat wings. And here is the detail that makes paleontologists shake their heads. Modern gliding lizards, the Draco of Southeast Asian forests, do the same thing by extending their ribs sideways. This animal does not. Its ribs are exactly where ribs should be. Those supporting rods are entirely new bones, grown in the skin itself, invented from nothing for this one purpose. Evolution did not adapt an existing structure here. It built a wing frame out of raw material in an animal that lived 100 million years before the first bird, and then let the whole design vanish forever. Watch it hunt in the first light. It moves up a trunk in short bursts, freezes, picks an insect off the bark with a quick sideways snatch, then continues. When it wants to change trees, it does not climb down. It simply walks out to the end of a limb, checks the gap the way you would check a street before crossing, and steps off into the air. Around you now, the forest is waking properly, and it is worth noticing what is not in it. There is no birdsong, no monkey calls, no rustle of small mammals, no scent of blossom, because there are no flowers to scent it. These trees reproduce with pollen thrown out into the wind, and cones held stiff at the ends of branches. In the southern half of Pangaea, entire forests are dominated by a single group of seed ferns with broad tongue-shaped leaves called Glossopteris, spread so uniformly across the south that their fossils, found in South America, Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica, would one day be a large part of the proof that all those lands were once joined. There is one more thing about this hour that you will only feel, not see. The air in a Permian forest at dawn is thick and still and slightly sweet with resin, and it is easy to breathe here. because the trees are pumping oxygen into a canopy that barely moves. Step out onto the open plain in the afternoon, especially later in this period, and you will notice the difference in your chest within an hour. Oxygen levels are falling across the Permian from around 30% at its start toward perhaps 15% or less by its end. And at those lower levels, the low ground feels like high altitude. Climbing a modest slope would leave you breathing hard. The forest, for as long as it lasts, is the easiest air on the continent. The light strengthens. The seminia move higher into the warmth. Somewhere below, a K-copse shuffles into the litter to sleep out the day, and every one of those small sounds stops at once. The canopy goes quiet in a wave from the far side of the grove toward you, animals freezing on branches mid-step. From the forest floor comes a smell you have not encountered here before, heavy and rank and unmistakably that of a meat eater. Something very large is walking through the trees below, and it is not in any hurry. Do not climb down. Whatever else happens in the next few minutes, stay exactly where you are, behind the trunk, with the wind coming into your face rather than away from it. It comes out of the tree line at a walk. The first thing your eye reports is the size, and the size is wrong for the shape. 3.5 meters from nose to tail, shoulders as high as your waist, a body as heavy as a large polar bear, and none of it is arranged the way a reptile is arranged. The legs are not splayed out to the sides. They are drawn in beneath the body, the hind limbs almost directly under the hips, so that the animal walks with its belly clear of the ground and its spine held level. It moves the way a big dog moves, steadily, efficiently, covering ground. The second thing your eye reports is the head, and the head is what stops your breath. It is long, deep, and narrow, built like a wedge, and the jaws are already slightly parted because they have to be. 2 canines emerge from the upper jaw and hang down past the line of the lower lip, curved, flattened, edged front and back with fine serrations, and each one is longer than your hand, from wrist to fingertip. This is Inostrancevia, and for a stretch of the late Permian, it was the most dangerous animal on the planet. It belongs to the Gorgonopsians, and they are not reptiles. Whatever your instincts are shouting at you, they are synapsids, distant relatives of yours, running the same evolutionary experiment your own ancestors were running, and running it hard. In the space of a few million years, the group produced the first genuinely fast, genuinely powerful land predators the world had ever seen, and this one is the largest of them all. Look at the way it hunts, because it is not what you would guess from the teeth. Saber teeth are extraordinary weapons, and they are also fragile ones. They are flattened blades. They will snap if they twist against bone. So an animal that carries them cannot fight the way a crocodile fights, clamping and rolling. It has to be precise. The whole skull is engineered around that precision. The jaws open impossibly wide, far wider than a modern big cat's, and the muscle attachments are arranged so that most of the force comes from the neck and shoulders, driving downward, rather than from the jaw squeezing shut. It is less like a bite and more like an axe stroke, delivered by the entire front half of the animal. The row of stout incisors at the front grips and anchors. The sabers go in, and the target is almost always the same. The throat, the underside of the neck, the soft, unarmored places. 40 meters out on the open ground, at the edge of the trees, there is a scatter of Scutosaurus doing what Scutosaurus always do, which is nothing at all. Standing, grinding, wide, low, armored, entirely confident. You already know what happens next, and knowing does not help. The predator does not sprint from a distance. It closes at a walk, then a trot, using the horsetails, and it is already inside the herd's tolerance before the nearest animal reacts. There is no roar. Silence is part of the design. The Scutosaurus do the only thing they know how to do. They plant their feet, drop their heads, and present their armored flanks, because that strategy has worked against every attacker for millions of years. Cobblestone plates, a body like a boulder, too much work. But there is a gap in it. There always is. When a Scutosaurus lowers its head, the underside of the neck is exposed for a moment, and a predator built around a downward stroke to the throat is a predator built specifically for that moment. You will not see the kill clearly, and that is probably a mercy. What you will see is a sudden convergence of two heavy bodies, a short, violent scuffle that throws up a cloud of red dust, and then stillness, with one animal standing over another, and its head lowered and its shoulders working. The rest of the herd does not stampede. They shuffle perhaps 20 meters away and resume eating. Panic costs energy, and in this climate, energy is water. There is a detail about those sabers worth carrying with you. They were replaced. Fossil skulls of Gorgonopsians have been found with a new canine already growing in alongside the old one, so that the animal was never left without a weapon while the worn one was shed. Big cats, tens of millions of years later, would never manage that trick, which is why a broken canine could be a death sentence for a modern saber-toothed predator. This one had a spare. Now the part that concerns you. When it has fed, it will lift its head, and when it lifts its head, it will look around, and its eyes will pass over the tree line. And a shape that does not belong in a tree line is exactly the kind of thing that catches the attention of an animal like this. So move now, while it is occupied, down the trunk, slowly, on the far side, onto the litter, which is soft and quiet, and stay low. Do not go straight away from it, because straight away means crossing the open ground behind the grove. Go sideways, along the tree line, keeping trunks between you and the kill. 10 steps. 20. Your own pulse is loud enough to be distracting. And then behind you, the feeding sounds stop. Do not turn. Do not run. Running turns a strange shape into prey. In every predator's mind that has ever existed, keep the same pace, keep the same line, and make for the downhill slope, where the horsetails grow thick and green because of the seep of water beneath them. You hear it take a few steps, not many, 4, perhaps 5, in your direction. Then nothing, and nothing continues, and continues, and eventually you reach the horsetails and push through them into the wet ground beyond. And when you finally allow yourself to look back through the stems, there is a large sandy brown shape standing at the edge of the grove with its head up, watching the place where you were, deciding that 100 kilograms of armored meat already on the ground is worth more than an unfamiliar shape that has gone into the reeds. That is the third rule of this world, and it is the one that matters most. You are not fast enough, strong enough, or armored enough to survive anything here on your own terms. What you have is the ability to be boring, to be unworth the effort. In a landscape where every calorie is expensive, being not obviously worth chasing is the most effective defense you own. Rest a moment in the wet ground and consider how recent all of this is. Predators like this did not exist for most of the history of life. For hundreds of millions of years, hunting on land meant sprawling, waiting, ambushing, snapping. Earlier in the Permian, in the north of Pangaea, the top predators were animals like Titanophonius, whose name means Titanic murderer, a 2.8-meter dinocephalian with a long tail, heavy interlocking teeth, and a skull built for gripping and holding. Formidable, but built low and broad, still fighting in the old style. And earlier still, in the water margins, sat Anteosaurus, 600 kilograms of ambush predator, with a skull so thickened across the roof that researchers suspect it was reinforced for impact, lurking in the shallows like a carnivorous hippopotamus, and exploding outward at anything that came to drink. What has changed by the time of the animal you have just escaped is the geometry. The legs came in underneath, the stride lengthened, pursuit became possible. This is the moment in Earth's history when land predators stopped waiting and started traveling, and every wolf, every lion, every hunting animal that would ever exist is downstream of that change. The seep leads you along a shallow gully as the afternoon goes flat and white with heat, and the vegetation thins again, and the air begins to taste faintly of something you cannot immediately place. Mineral, slightly bitter. It dries the inside of your mouth. You come up over a low ridge of crumbling red rock, and the land opens out in front of you. The plain below is white, not pale, not sandy, white. From the foot of the ridge all the way to the horizon, flat and blinding and utterly silent, with something dark red spreading across it in the distance like a stain. Shade your eyes before you walk down there, because the glare off that surface is strong enough to hurt, and it does not fade as you get closer. The white is salt. You are standing at the edge of one of the great interior basins of Pangaea, a closed depression with no outlet to any sea, in a place where water arrives rarely and leaves constantly. Whatever rain falls here, and whatever rivers reach here, cannot flow anywhere else. They sit. They evaporate under a sun that has nothing between it and the ground, and every drop that lifts into the air leaves behind everything it was carrying. Do that for 10,000 years, and you get a crust. Do it for 1,000,000, and you get what is in front of you, a plain of salt and gypsum, centimeters thick in places, cracked into vast polygonal plates that crunch and shatter under your boots like thin ice. Walk out onto it, and the silence becomes something physical. There is no vegetation to move in the wind. There are no insects. There is no water sound. There is only the crunch of your own steps and the low, dry hiss of air across a flat surface. And after a few minutes, you will find yourself walking more quietly without deciding to. The red stain you saw from the ridge is a shallow lake, and it is not red because of the sky. It is a brine pool, so concentrated with salt that almost nothing can live in it, and the few things that can are microscopic. Halophilic microbes, salt-loving single-celled organisms, colonize the water in numbers beyond counting, and many of them carry pigments that protect them from ultraviolet light. Those pigments are red. Bloom them across a lake, and the water turns the color of rust, or wine, or blood, depending on the hour. Around the edges, where the brine is shallowest, there are mounds, low, layered, cushion-shaped structures, growing out of the water, some the size of a dinner plate, some the size of a table, microbial mats, building themselves upward one thin film at a time, trapping sediment as they go. They are the oldest form of life visibly present on this planet, older than everything you have seen by billions of years. And they are still here, still working, entirely indifferent to the sabre-toothed drama happening 2 days' walk away. Crouch and touch the edge of the brine, and then taste your fingertip if you are curious. It is not merely salty, it is bitter, metallic, faintly soapy from magnesium salts. It would kill you to drink it quickly. The temperature at this hour is somewhere past 45 degrees Celsius, and there is no shade anywhere within sight. Your body is losing water at a rate you cannot sustain. And tonight, on this same crust, with no cloud cover and no vegetation and no moisture in the air to hold heat, the temperature will fall toward freezing. That is the interior of Pangaea, a place that tries to boil you and then tries to freeze you on the same day in the same spot. There is one more thing this basin will do to you if you stay, and you can see it forming to the north. A column of dust, thin at first, walking slowly across the flats on its own, then another. In air this hot, rising off a surface this flat, dust devils spin up out of nothing and wander for kilometers, and behind them, when the pressure shifts, come the real storms, walls of salt-laden grit that can blot out the sun in minutes and strip the skin off anything caught in the open. Lie flat, cover your face, and wait them out. Standing up in one is how you go blind. So you do what everything else here does, which is follow the tracks. There are tracks, deep ones, pressed into the softer ground at the basin margin, 3-toed and 4-toed, a whole braid of them running along the edge of the flats, all going the same way. Animals do not wander in a place like this. They commute between water and water on routes worn by generations. The tracks lead you around the rim for an hour, and then the ground begins to change, a gray-green tint in the crust, then low, salt-tolerant plants, stunted and waxy, then a stand of horsetails, improbably bright, and beyond them, the glint of open fresh water, held in a shallow depression fed by a spring, an oasis in the oldest sense of the word. And there is a herd at the water. They are about 3 meters long, heavy-bodied, standing on thick columnar legs, with barrel chests and short tails. And if that were all, they would be unremarkable, but their heads are extraordinary. Growing from the top of each skull is a structure of solid bone, thick and blunt, projecting sideways and upward in heavy knobs and prongs, so that the whole animal appears to be wearing a crown of carved wooden branches. There are further bosses on the cheeks and above the eyes. The overall impression is of a hippopotamus that has been fitted with the antlers of an elk, sculpted from bone rather than grown as velvet. This is Estemenosuchus, and its name means, quite literally, crowned crocodile. Those projections were not weapons in any serious sense. They are too blunt, too oddly angled, too varied between individuals. They are display structures, and display structures mean social lives, recognizing one another, judging one another, settling questions without fighting. 2 males square up at the water's edge as you watch, heads raised and turned slightly sideways so that the crowns catch the light, and after a long moment, one of them simply lowers his head and steps back, and the matter is settled without a single blow. Here is the detail about this animal that should genuinely surprise you. Fossilized impressions of its skin have been found. Not scales, not armor, smooth, thin, glandular skin, more like the hide of a modern amphibian or the naked skin of a hippopotamus than anything reptilian, dotted with what appear to be gland openings. This is a 3-meter animal walking around in the Permian with soft, moist, secreting skin, and it tells you that the outer surfaces of these creatures were far stranger and far more varied than any museum reconstruction has ever managed to convey. The herd drinks in shifts. Some animals stand with their feet in the shallows, drawing water in long pulls. Others hang back at the tree line, heads up, doing nothing at all. Those are the ones you should be watching because they know something. The water in the middle of the pool is perhaps a meter deep, murky with churned sediment, and there is a low shape lying in it that has not moved since you arrived. You took it for a sunken log. It is not a log. It is the top of a skull, and the skull is enormous, and there are 2 nostrils at the front of it, just breaking the surface. Antiosaurus, 500 to 600 kilograms of ambush predator, with a skull roof so thickened and reinforced that researchers have argued it was built to survive violent impact, and jaws that shut with heavy interlocking teeth designed to hold rather than slice. Its legs are not built for a long chase. They do not need to be. It has chosen a strategy that requires only one thing: that its food comes to the water. Everything at this pool comes to the water. The strike, when it comes, is not aimed at the adults. It comes up out of the shallows in an eruption of mud and spray at a young animal standing knee-deep at the edge, and the sound of it is like a wave breaking against a wall. The herd does not scatter far, 40 meters, no more. Within a few minutes, they are drinking again on the far side. Because the alternative is dehydration, and dehydration is a slower predator, but a more reliable one, which is the arithmetic every animal in this basin runs every single day, including you. There is one source of water. There is something living in it. You drink anyway, upstream of the pool, at the spring itself, where the flow is fast and shallow, and nothing large can hide, and you fill everything you can carry, and you do not linger. The sun goes down while you are still walking, and the temperature drops so fast you can feel it moving across your skin in stages. But there is something new in the wind tonight, coming from the west across the flats, and it is not the bitter mineral smell of the salt. It is heavier, cooler, faintly rotten in the specific way that only one kind of place smells, and underneath it, so low that you feel it in your chest before you consciously hear it, there is a sound like distant thunder that does not stop and does not fade and has clearly been going on for a very long time. Keep walking west through the dark. The sound gets louder in a way that is not gradual, and then the ground under your feet stops being crust and starts being sand. And by first light, you are standing at the edge of something that covers most of this planet, Panthalassa, one ocean wrapped around a world with only one continent in it, so large that if you set out from this beach and traveled directly west, you would cross most of the globe before you touched land again. An ocean that size does not behave like the seas you know. There is nothing to break it. Swell generated by a storm system thousands of kilometers away arrives here, having crossed open water the entire way, and it comes ashore in long, slow, enormous lines, one after another, with a rhythm you can set your breathing to. And the tide is wrong. The moon is closer to the Earth in this period than it is in yours. Not dramatically, but enough that its pull on this ocean is stronger. And the tidal range along a shallow coast like this one is greater than anything on a modern shoreline. What that means in practice is that the water withdraws further at low tide than seems possible, exposing hundreds of meters of flat, rippled sand and rock that were underwater an hour ago, and then comes back faster than a person can comfortably walk. Remember that. It matters before this morning is over. Go out onto the exposed flats while they are dry, because what is stranded there is a museum of a world that is about to end. There are shells everywhere, coiled ones, some the size of a dinner plate, ridged and chambered, with delicate suture lines tracing across their surfaces where the internal walls meet the outer shell. Ammonoids, relatives of the modern nautilus, hunting through the sea in enormous numbers. Straight-shelled nautiloids too, cones a meter long, drifting horizontally over the bottom with tentacles trailing. There are brachiopods by the thousand, hinged shells rooted to the rock, filtering. There are crinoids, sea lilies, animals that look exactly like flowers on stalks, swaying in the shallow pools with their feathery arms open, filtering the same water. In some places, they grow so densely that walking through them would be like wading through a wheat field made of animals. And in one of the pools, if you are patient and your eye is good, there is something that will genuinely stop you. It is small, flattened, oval, segmented into 3 lengthwise lobes, scuttling for cover under a ledge, a trilobite. They have been here for almost 300 million years by this point. They crawled across the seafloor when the continents were unrecognizable, survived multiple mass extinctions, diversified into thousands of forms, and here at the end of the Permian, there are only a few kinds left, small and unglamorous, hiding under rocks. You are looking at one of the last of them. Within a geological blink, there will be none, anywhere, ever again. Now look out at the reef. There is a long dark line offshore where the waves break differently, and that is a reef. But it is not built by corals in any way you would recognize. Modern reef-building corals do not exist yet. This structure is made of sponges, some of them rigid and glassy, bound together by encrusting algae and calcifying microbes, cemented into a wall that runs for kilometers and stands tens of meters high. Structures exactly like it are still standing today. The Guadalupe Mountains of Texas and New Mexico are a Permian reef, lifted up out of the sea and turned into desert cliffs, and you can walk along the top of what was once this same kind of wall and put your hand on the fossilized sponges that built it. Behind the reef, the water is calm and glass clear over white sand, which is where you see the shape. It comes across the lagoon slowly, a long dark body maybe 7 meters from nose to tail, cartilaginous, moving with the unhurried economy of something that has never been in a hurry in its life. The outline is roughly shark-like, and it is a distant relative of sharks. But everything about its head is wrong. The lower jaw does not end where a jaw should end. Instead, it carries a structure that no other animal has ever had, before or since. A spiral, a tight coil of teeth, curling back on itself like the blade of a circular saw set into the midline of the lower jaw, with the largest and newest teeth at the outer edge of the coil and the oldest, smallest ones wound tightly into the center. This is Helicoprion, and for most of a century, nobody could work out what the spiral was for, or even where on the animal it went. It was reconstructed on the snout, on the tail, hanging from the lower lip like a monstrous ornament. Only in the last decades, when a scan of a specimen finally revealed jaw cartilage preserved around the whorl, did the answer settle. It sat inside the lower jaw, and it worked like a saw blade rolling forward. Here is the elegant part. Sharks shed teeth constantly, dropping them into the sediment by the thousand. This animal never lost a single one. Each new tooth grew at the back of the jaw and pushed the whole series forward and around. So the spiral was a complete record of every tooth the animal had ever grown, wound up inside its own mouth. Watch it hunt over the sand, and you can almost see the mechanism. It closes on something soft, an ammonoid perhaps, and as the lower jaw rotates upward, the whirl sweeps back through the prey, slicing and dragging the flesh inward toward the throat in one motion, a blade and a conveyor belt in the same organ. It passes maybe 30 meters from where you stand in knee-deep water, and it does not turn its head. It is not alone out there either. The Permian Sea is full of sharks and shark relatives, and one group in particular, the xenocanths, had a habit that would look wrong to any modern eye. They left the ocean entirely, swimming far up rivers and into freshwater lakes, hunting inland with a long spine projecting backward from the base of the skull like a fixed blade. Freshwater sharks in the rivers you walked past 2 days ago. It is one more reminder that in this world, the boundaries you take for granted, sea and river, water and land, are still being negotiated. Then, on the flats behind you, the sound changes. The wall of foam is already coming in across the sand, and it is not creeping. On a tidal flat this shallow, the returning water spreads at the speed of a jog, and the distance between you and the dune line is a great deal further than it was when you walked out here in the dark. Go now, not straight back, because straight back is a low channel that will fill first, but at an angle toward the higher rock. Water reaches your ankles before you have covered half of it, then your shins, cold and pulling sideways with real force. Crinoids and shells roll past your feet. Something small and quick shoots away from your leg. You reach the rocks with the sea already at your knees, and you climb, and you sit, and inside 20 minutes, there's nothing where you were standing but open water with waves on it. That is what a Permian tide does. It is not violent. It simply does not negotiate. And this coast has worse than tides. A single ocean covering most of a planet, heated at the equator with no continents to break the flow, generates storms of a scale that has no modern equal. Off Pangaea's shores, cyclones spin up and feed and keep feeding, and there is evidence in the rocks of storm deposits, so vast that geologists have to reach for the word mega monsoon to describe the seasonal system that produced them. When one of those comes ashore, it does not last a night. It lasts weeks, for now. Though the morning is calm and the tide is high, and the reef is a white line of breaking water half a kilometer out. Follow the shore north to where a river comes down out of the hills and spreads into a brackish delta of channels and sandbanks. The water here is stained with tannins and cool from the highlands. There is a rock in the middle of the nearest channel, and on it there is an animal, and it is watching you. It is about 60 centimeters long, slender, with a low flat body, and it is dripping wet. It has just come out of the water. Its tail is flattened side to side like a paddle. Its feet are broad, and along its muzzle, catching the low sun, there is a spray of fine stiff hairs, angled forward, twitching very slightly as it breathes. Whiskers, if you're still here with me, drifting along, thank you. If these journeys help you rest, you can quietly follow the channel so the next one finds you. Now, back to the rock in the middle of the channel and the animal sitting on it. Sit down slowly on the bank. It will not run immediately. It is curious, and curiosity is exactly the thing you should be noticing about it, because curiosity is expensive. Only an animal with energy to spare can afford to be interested in something that is not food. It is called Prosinosuchus, and of everything you have seen in this world, this is the one you should look at longest. 60 centimeters, nose to tail, a long, low, flexible body, short limbs with broad feet, and that tail flattened from side to side rather than round, which is the classic signature of an animal that swims by undulating its whole rear half. The way an otter does, the spine has extra flexibility built into the lower back for exactly that motion. But it is the head that carries the story. Along the muzzle, in fossil skulls of this group, there are small holes in the bone, foramina, the openings through which nerves and blood vessels pass to the surface. In this animal, on that part of the snout, they are numerous and arranged in a pattern that in living mammals corresponds to one thing: the nerve supply for vibrissae, whiskers, sensory hairs wired directly to the brain, mapping the world by touch in water too dark or too silty for eyes to work. And whiskers are not a small detail, because whiskers are hair. You do not get hair on the face without the skin machinery that makes hair everywhere else. Somewhere in this lineage, in animals like this one, in the Permian, hundreds of millions of years before any mammal existed, the body was already growing the first coats of fine insulating fur. Open its mouth and it continues. The teeth are sorted into a set. Nipping incisors at the front, a pair of large canines, and behind them cheek teeth with multiple cusps, built to hold and puncture and shear rather than simply pierce. That is a mammal's dentition in its early form. Chewing, real chewing, is beginning here. There is one more piece of internal architecture in this skull that changes everything, and you would never notice it from outside. The roof of the mouth is being closed over. A shelf of bone is growing inward from the sides, separating the nasal passage above from the mouth below, forming what anatomists call a secondary palate. Think about what that allows. With a solid roof over the mouth, an animal can hold food in its jaws, chew it, and keep breathing the entire time. Without it, every mouthful is a small interruption in the supply of oxygen. If you intend to run a body at high metabolic rate, burning fuel constantly to hold your own temperature steady, you cannot afford to stop breathing every time you eat. Whiskers, hair, sorted teeth, a palate that lets you breathe while you chew. Put those four together, and you're looking at the beginnings of warm-bloodedness assembled piece by piece in a river valley in the late Permian, in an animal the size of a cat. Watch it work, and the behavior fits the anatomy exactly. It slides off the rock without a splash, moves upstream underwater with its body flexing side to side, and comes up in the shallows with something small twisting in its jaws. It carries it to the bank, holds it down with a forefoot, and eats it in pieces rather than swallowing it whole. That single act, holding food down with a foot and processing it in the mouth, is something you have not seen any other animal in this world do. There is something else you would only learn by staying until after dark, which is where this animal sleeps. It does not sleep in the open. Burrow systems from this period, dug out of ancient floodplain rock, have produced small cynodonts curled inside chambers at the end of tunnels. sometimes more than one animal to a chamber. A burrow is a temperature-controlled box. It holds warmth through a freezing night and keeps it out during a lethal afternoon, and for a body that is trying to run at a steady internal temperature. That is not a luxury. It is the difference between the strategy working and not working. Warm blood and a hole in the ground arrived together. And if there is more than one animal in that chamber, and if some of those animals are young, then something else is happening in there that fossils can only hint at. Young that stay with a parent, in the dark, being kept warm. Every one of the things you think of as belonging to mammals is being tested here in small animals, underground, while the giants above them own the daylight. There is a related idea here worth carrying with you, and it concerns the top of the skull, rather than the mouth. You will remember the third eye, the pineal opening, that neat round hole in the roof of the skull of nearly every large animal here. It is a light meter. It reads the length of the day and sets the body's rhythms, telling it when to be active, when to shut down, when the seasons are turning. In the cynodonts, that hole starts to shrink, and as it shrinks, the internal clock stops depending on direct sunlight through the skull and begins running on the animal's own chemistry instead, in the dark, from inside. That is the arrangement you have. Your own pineal gland is buried deep in your brain with no window over it at all, quietly deciding when you feel awake and when you do not, on a cycle it can hold even without the sun. The night, in other words, is beginning to open up as a place where animals can live, and the animals moving into it are the ones with whiskers, hair, and a clock that no longer needs the sky. Further up the delta, in the shallow, muddy backwaters, there are other animals working the margins, and one of them is so ordinary that you would walk straight past it. It is about the size of a large pig, heavy-set, with short legs, a barrel body, and a strange, stubby face. A horny beak, a short, flat snout, small, high nostrils, and two blunt tusks projecting down from the upper jaw. It has no armor. It has no crown of bone. It has no sail, no venom, no sabers. It stands in the mud, crops vegetation with its beak, wallows, and shuffles off to a burrow. Its name is Lystrosaurus, and there is nothing about it, standing here in the mud, to suggest that it matters at all. Remember it anyway. If you watch it for an hour, all you will see is competence of the dullest kind. It eats low vegetation that other animals ignore. It digs. Its nostrils and eyes sit high on the skull, which is the arrangement of an animal comfortable half-submerged in muddy water. Its barrel body suggests a long gut, capable of extracting a living from poor food. It is not fast, not strong, not clever, not specialized in any direction at all. Specialists are magnificent when the world stays the same shape. Generalists are boring, right up until the moment the world changes. Around it, the delta is busy with smaller shapes, amphibians in the reeds, small toothy therocephalians hunting along the water's edge. Somewhere in the leaf litter, a divinia, one of the earliest cynodonts, with genuinely complex cheek teeth, is doing very much what the animal on the rock is doing, but on land. This whole quiet, unremarkable corner of the world, the small animals in the mud and the reeds, the burrowers, the whiskered swimmers, is where the future of vertebrate life on land is currently sitting, not with the Gorgonopsians, not with the armored giants. Here, in the animals, nobody would build a museum hall around. The light goes long and low across the water, and you settle back against the bank, watching the swimmer work its way upstream in the last of it. And it is only when you look up that you notice the sky has been wrong for some time. The sun is too orange and too soft-edged, and it is sitting in a haze that has no clouds in it. The horizon has a brown tone that has nothing to do with dust from the flats, and on the surface of the still water at your feet, a fine gray film has been settling, so light that it does not sink, drifting in slow spirals where the current turns. You rub some of it between your fingers. It is not sand. It is not pollen. It is gritty and slightly greasy, and it smells very faintly of matches. Somewhere, far to the north, on the other side of this enormous continent, the ground has opened. Walk north for as long as you can stand it, and the ash gets deeper. At first, it is only a film on leaves, something you notice when you brush a frond and your hand comes away gray. Then it is a coating. Then it is on everything. In the folds of bark, floating in every still pool, drifting in the corners of rocks like old snow, and when the wind comes up, it lifts off the ground in a fine choking haze that gets into your eyes and stays there. What is happening is not near you. That is the thing to understand. It is thousands of kilometers away, in the north of Pangaea, in the region that will one day be Siberia, and you can feel it on this coast. The crust has cracked open across an area larger than most modern countries, and it is not erupting the way a volcano erupts. There is no single mountain, no cone, no plume you could point at. It is fissure eruption, long tears in the ground, kilometers of them, pouring out flood basalt in sheets that spread across the landscape and cool and are buried by the next sheet, and the next, and the next, for hundreds of thousands of years. By the time it stops, it will have laid down a volume of rock estimated in the millions of cubic kilometers, enough to bury the entire continental United States under hundreds of meters of stone. The Siberian traps are among the largest volcanic events in the history of the planet. But the lava is not what kills the world. The lava stays in Siberia. What travels is what comes out with it. The magma rising through that crust does not pass through empty rock. It intrudes into some of the largest coal deposits and organic-rich sediments on Earth, laid down over the tens of millions of years before this, and it cooks them, carbon that had been locked in the ground since the great forests of the Carboniferous is baked out and vented into the sky as carbon dioxide and methane, along with sulfur dioxide, chlorine, and fluorine in quantities that no ordinary eruption could produce. The atmosphere is being rewritten from below, which is why the sky here, on the far side of the continent, has this particular color. The haze is sulfate aerosol, high and thin, turning the sun into a soft orange disk you can look at directly without discomfort. Sunsets last far longer than they should and go through colors you have no name for. And then it rains. You will smell it before it starts. A sharp mineral bite in the air. The drops are warm and they sting slightly on the skin of your arms. And where they run into your eyes, they burn. Get under cover, under an overhang, under anything. The rain here is acid. Sulfur dioxide in the upper atmosphere combines with water and comes down as dilute acid, and it falls on leaves that have no defense against it. Watch the fronds of the seed ferns after a heavy fall, and you will see the damage. Bleached patches, curled edges, tissue that has gone translucent and dies within days. Plants do not run. That is the whole tragedy of this, compressed into one sentence. Every animal you have met in this world can walk away from a bad valley. The forests cannot. and everything in this world eats plants, or eats something that eats plants. The rivers show it first. The channel you followed 2 days ago is running thick now, brown-gray, carrying a heavy load of ash washed off the hillsides, and the water has a slick sheen on it. In the slow bends, dead fish have collected in slow rotating rafts, dozens of them, silver sides up, turning gently where the current curls back on itself. The lungfish that should be buried in the bank are coming out of the mud into water that gives them nothing. And along the shore, the animals keep coming to drink anyway, because there is nowhere else. A group of Scutosaurus stands in the shallows, with ash on their armored backs, gray from the dust, heads down, drinking that water. They will not understand what is happening to them. They will simply find, over a season, then another, that the plants they need are becoming harder to find, that the ground where they always fed is bare, that they have to walk further than their bodies were ever designed to walk. Slow armored tanks in a world where the fuel is running out. Higher up the bank, a gorgonopsian lies in the shade of a dying tree with its ribs showing. It is not injured. There is nothing wrong with its teeth or its legs. It is simply a specialist at the top of a food chain that is failing from the bottom. And when the herds thin out, an animal that needs 100 kilograms of meat every few days runs out of options faster than almost anything else alive. The most magnificent predator of the Permian will be gone entirely. Every species, every last one, with no descendants at all. This is the event that geologists call the end Permian extinction, and among people who study it, it is often called something plainer, the Great Dying. The numbers are difficult to hold in your head. Roughly 95% of species in the oceans disappear. Roughly 70% of land vertebrate families go with them. The trilobites end here after almost 300 million years. The great sponge reefs collapse. The forests fail so completely that for millions of years afterward, there is almost no coal being formed anywhere on Earth, a gap in the rock record that geologists call simply the coal gap, and in the sediments from those years. In cores drilled all over the world, there is a layer where fossil pollen and spores from trees drop away almost to nothing and are replaced by a surge of fungal remains, a world in which the dominant organism in the record, for a while, is whatever was living on the dead wood. The mechanism, as far as it can be reconstructed, runs like a series of doors closing. This carbon dioxide warms the atmosphere by perhaps 8 to 10 degrees Celsius globally, which is enough to make the tropics genuinely lethal for large animals. Warmer water holds less dissolved oxygen, so the oceans begin to suffocate from the bottom up. In the stagnant, oxygen-free depths, bacteria produce hydrogen sulfide, and where that reaches the surface, it poisons the water, and then the air above it. The same carbon dioxide dissolving into the sea makes it more acidic, and animals that build shells out of calcium carbonate find that the ocean itself has begun to work against them. Not one catastrophe, several arriving together, each one making the next worse, and on land, for you, standing here in the ash with a wet cloth over your face, what it feels like is this: air that is harder to breathe than it was a season ago, water that tastes of metal, rain that stings, a sun you can stare at, a silence where insect noise used to be, and a horizon that no longer has a clean edge anywhere on it. There is one more thing pressing on your chest, and it is not fear. Oxygen, which stood near 30% at the beginning of this period, has been falling for millions of years, and by now, it is somewhere down around 15% or lower at sea level on this beach. You're breathing air equivalent to standing on a mountain several thousand meters high. Walk up a modest slope, and you will have to stop halfway. For animals with less efficient lungs than yours, the low ground has become a place where breathing itself costs more than it returns, and the burrows that once offered shelter are now pockets of even thinner air. The strangest part is how slow it is. This is not an afternoon. It is not a year. The whole collapse plays out over something in the range of tens of thousands of years, which is fast enough in geological terms to look like a single line in the rock, and slow enough that no animal alive ever experienced it as an event. Generation after generation simply found the world slightly harder than their parents had, in a direction that never reversed. The morning after the worst of the rain, the ash has settled and the air is briefly clear, and the sun comes up as a pale copper coin over a landscape gone the color of cement. Nothing large moves anywhere in it, but at the base of the dead tree, where the ground is soft, a small heap of freshly turned earth is being pushed steadily out of a hole. A blunt-beaked face appears at the entrance, gray with dust, blinks twice at the ruined world, and goes back down. Follow that small heap of turned earth, because the animal underneath it is about to inherit a planet. The world above the burrow is not empty, but it is close. Walk for a day through the early aftermath, and you will pass no herds, no armored backs, no sails on any ridge, nothing large moving anywhere in the middle distance. The horizon is open in a way it never was. The plants that grow first in the disturbed ground are low, tough, fast-reproducing things, spore-bearers and weedy survivors, spreading across ash beds in monotonous stands, with almost no variety in them at all. And moving through those stands, in numbers that are frankly difficult to believe, is the pig-sized animal with the beak and the two blunt tusks. In some rock sequences from the years just after the boundary in the Karoo of southern Africa, Lystrosaurus makes up something in the region of 9 out of every 10 vertebrate fossils recovered. Not the most common animal, very nearly the only animal. That is what an empty world looks like when it starts to fill again, not a rich cast of new creatures, but one unremarkable generalist everywhere in enormous numbers, eating whatever it can crop and digging where it can dig. Nothing about it was superior. It was not stronger than the animals that died, or faster or better armed. It happened to be a small to medium generalist that could eat poor food, tolerate low oxygen, and shelter underground. And when the world changed shape, those 3 dull qualities turned out to be the only currency that still bought anything. Its bones turn up in South Africa, in India, in China, in Russia, and in Antarctica, the same animal on land masses that today are separated by whole oceans, which is one of the more elegant proofs that all of that ground was once a single continent you could have walked across. Not everything vanished, and the pattern of what survived is worth sitting with. The great amphibians did not entirely disappear. Some temnospondyle lineages came through and even flourished for a while in the rivers of the world that followed, though nothing ever again reached the size of the 9-meter animal you watched in that brown channel. The dicynodonts came through in the form of that beaked survivor and its descendants, and went on to produce some genuinely enormous herbivores later, and the small whiskered swimmer came through. The cynodonts, that unglamorous group living in burrows at the water's edge, survived the collapse in reduced numbers, and kept doing exactly what they had been doing. Staying small, staying insulated, staying underground, processing food in the mouth, holding their own temperature, everything that lineage would become, every mammal that has ever existed, including the one reading a screen right now, came through this bottleneck in the bodies of animals that could fit in a shoebox. The Gorgonopsians did not come through, neither did the pariasaurs, the armored tanks, neither did the dinocephalians, with their bone crowns and their headbutting, nor the sailed synapsids, who had already gone long before. The most spectacular animals of the Permian left no descendants at all. Entire branches of the tree ended with nothing growing on from them. Recovery was not quick. The usual estimate is somewhere between 5 and 10 million years before ecosystems regained anything like their former complexity, and in some marine environments longer than that. For the whole of that stretch, the world stayed simplified, low in diversity, dominated by a handful of tough survivors, with reefs largely absent from the oceans. And when things did rebuild, they rebuilt differently into that emptied landscape. In the tens of millions of years that followed, came a group of small, upright, fast-growing reptiles nobody in the Permian would have paid any attention to, and their descendants became the dinosaurs, the age you know as the age of giant reptiles exists in the space that this event cleared. There is a detail from those first recovering years that is easy to skip past and hard to forget. In the Antarctic, in rock from just after the boundary, burrows have been found packed with the bones of that same beaked survivor. Several animals to a chamber in a place that even then sat at high latitude with months of winter darkness. Whatever else was happening on the surface, some animals were spending long stretches of the year underground, together, waiting it out. The strategy that worked was not to fight the world. It was to sit below it until it changed its mind. Now, the honest question, and it deserves a straight answer: how much of what you have walked through is actually known, more than you might expect, and it comes from specific places you could visit? The Karoo Basin of South Africa is the richest window on this world, a landscape of dry hills where a nearly continuous sequence of sediment records tens of millions of years of the late Permian and the extinction itself. Animal by animal, layer by layer, almost everything known about Gorgonopsians, Dicynodonts, and the small burrowers comes out of that ground. In the north, along the northern Dvina River, in Russia, an excavation begun over a century ago pulled out complete skeletons of the largest sabre-toothed synapsid and the armored herbivores it hunted, preserved together in the same ancient floodplain deposits. In Texas and Oklahoma, red beds of early Permian age produced the sailed animals, the armored amphibians, and the boomerang-headed ones, in such numbers that they defined how the early part of the period is understood. And in northeastern Brazil, in the Parnaíba Basin, the Pedra de Fogo Formation yielded the vast amphibian, along with fossilized wood, fish, and whole petrified forests, turned to stone in a landscape that is now dry scrub. There is a real pleasure in knowing that some of the strangest evidence of this world came out of Brazilian rock. The dating is not guesswork either. Volcanic ash layers deposited around the boundary contain tiny crystals of zircon, and zircon locks uranium into its structure when it forms and then decays at a known rate, which allows the age to be measured directly. That is where the figure of roughly 252 million years comes from, with an uncertainty measured in tens of thousands of years rather than millions. The climate story comes from chemistry, carbon isotope ratios that lurch at the boundary, oxygen isotopes in fossil teeth that record ocean temperature, sulfur signatures, and the physical presence of the Siberian basalts themselves, still there, still measurable, still covering an area you can see from orbit. There are things nobody knows, and they should be said plainly. Nobody knows what colors these animals were. Nobody knows what most of them sounded like. Though bone structure allows reasonable guesses about what they could hear, nobody knows how they behaved socially, except by inference from bone beds, burrow contents, and the shape of display structures, the details of the extinction sequence. Which door closed first and how fast are still argued about in journals every year, but the broad shape of it is not in doubt. This world existed. These animals walked. The event happened. And here's the thing about the Permian that stays with people who study it. It is not a failed rehearsal for something better. It is not an awkward early draft of the world you live in. It was a complete, functioning, fully realized planet with predators and prey and forests and reefs and social lives and mornings and seasons that ran for 47 million years, which is more than 200 times longer than anything recognizably human has existed. It was not waiting for anything. It was not going anywhere. It simply was, in the way your own world simply is, when you walk out into it on an ordinary morning, and nearly all of it is gone, without leaving descendants, without leaving a trace outside of stone, and the fact that anything at all continued was decided in burrows, in mud, by animals that nobody watching at the time would have picked out. The ash has stopped falling, the light is thin and clean, and there is a long walk ahead of you. Back along the coast, back up the river, back across the red ground and the salt and the trampled paths, to the clearing where all of this started. The walk back takes days, and the world lets you through without much comment. You cross the ash beds first, where nothing moves, and then the ground slowly starts to have opinions again, a scattering of low green in a gully, a single set of tracks in dried mud, small and four-toed, going somewhere with purpose, then insects, thin and few at first, and the sound of them is so ordinary that it takes you a moment to notice it has come back at all. The delta is quieter than it was. The rock in the middle of the channel is empty, but further upstream, where the water runs clean off the higher ground, there's a wet trail on a flat stone leading up out of the current and disappearing into the reeds, and it is exactly the width of a small, low-bodied swimmer with a paddle for a tail. You do not see the animal. The trail is enough. The salt flats have not changed and never will, in any human sense of the word. The white plain is still there, still blinding, still cracking under your boots. The red brine lake still holds its microbial bloom, the same organisms doing the same thing they were doing 1 billion years before any of this began, entirely unbothered by which large animals happen to be walking past the shore this week. Beyond it, the tracks along the basin rim are still deep and still braided, though fewer of them are fresh. The forest is thinner than you remember. Whole stands of conifers stand dead and gray with their needles gone, and the light comes through them in a way it did not before. But down among the fallen trunks, there is movement, low and unglamorous. Something small has been digging under a root. Something else has left a neat pile of stripped fern stems beside a stone. And on the ground under the dead canopy, where the leaf litter has gone soft and deep, There are the tracks of an animal you cannot identify, going about its business in the dark. Without you, you pass the burrow field on the third afternoon, and it is still working. The holes are still there, ringed with fans of loose earth, and the trails between them are still worn into the dirt. You stop at the edge and wait. And after a long while, a blunt, beaked head rises out of the ground 15 meters away, front feet on the rim, and looks at you for several seconds. It whistles once, not twice, then it goes back down. Whatever that means in the language of a small burrowing animal, it does not appear to mean alarm. You reach the river on the fourth evening. The water is running clear again, brown with silt and nothing else. Out in the middle of the channel, 3 ridges break the surface, spaced apart by more than a body length, holding still against the current. You do not go down to the water. You stand on the bank a long time and watch them, and then you walk on. And on the 5th morning, before it is light, you come up through the horsetails and out into the clearing where you arrived. It is the same. The soil is still black and soft under your feet. The tree ferns still stand around the edge, with their flat crowns held out like satellite dishes. The air is warm and damp and smells of resin and wet clay, with that faint, sharp trace underneath, like a struck match that you no longer need explained to you. And the clearing is full of shapes. They are lying exactly where they were lying on your first morning here, low and heavy on the ground, motionless, all of them turned sideways in the same direction, waiting. Sit down at the edge. There is time. The sky in the east is only just beginning to go from black to a deep, transparent blue, and the stars are still out, thick and unfamiliar, with a moon that sits slightly too large above the tree line. The first light does not arrive as light. It arrives as color. The sails begin to show, one by one, as the sun comes up behind the trees. The great fans of skin catch the low rays from the side and go translucent, and the fine branching lines of blood vessels appear inside them like veins in a leaf held up to a window, red at the base, orange higher up, pale gold at the thin trailing edge, 50 of them across the clearing, all leaning into the same slow light. Nothing makes a sound. Warmth is moving into those bodies now, degree by degree, carried in the blood down out of the skin and into the muscle and the gut, and somewhere in the top of each of those skulls, a small pale organ under a round window of bone is reading the strength of the morning and adjusting an internal clock accordingly. They do not know what they are. They do not know that this arrangement, this particular experiment in bone and skin and sunlight, will be gone from the earth entirely, and that the shape will never be tried again in 300 million years of life. They know that it is warm and that it is getting warmer, and that soon it will be possible to move. One of them lifts its head, then another. A short, wet snort carries across the clearing. A body shifts, and a belly comes off the ground. On the far side, where the sails are smaller and paler and carry those odd little crossbars along their spines, the round-bodied ones have already begun to eat, working at the base of a fern with blunt pegs of teeth, entirely unconcerned by the large-headed animals 100 meters away who are still too cold to be a problem. Overhead, high in the trees, at the clearing's edge, something small steps out onto a bare limb, checks the gap the way you would check a street, and drops into the air. The day is beginning the way it has begun here every day for millions of years, and you sit at the edge of it in soft black soil, breathing air that is easy and thick and slightly sweet. in the last hours of a world that does not know it is ending, watching animals that are, in the oldest and most literal sense, your relatives. The sail nearest you fills with light. Somewhere under your ribs, your own heart is doing what those hearts are doing, pushing warm blood out to the surface and back. In the middle of your skull, a small gland that was once a window to the skies, quietly deciding how tired you are. And deep inside each of your ears, 3 bones smaller than grains of rice are carrying sound into your head, bones that in the ancestors of the whiskered swimmer in that river were part of a jaw repurposed over unimaginable stretches of time so that you could hear your own breathing on a quiet night. None of it was designed, all of it was inherited. There is no lesson waiting at the end of this clearing. There is only the fact of it, that this happened, that it lasted an almost unimaginable length of time, that it was full of animals with faces and habits and bad tempers and preferences about where to sleep, and that the ground you live on remembers all of it in a language written entirely in stone. The light climbs. The colors in the sails go from red to amber to almost white as the sun clears the trees, and then, quite gradually, they stop looking like sails at all and start looking like what the light does through a curtain in a room somewhere, in a house on a planet where the salt flats have become desert, where the reef has become a mountain range in Texas, where the river of the great amphibian has become dry scrub in northeastern Brazil, and where the clearing you are sitting in is a layer of stone somewhere beneath a road. The ferns fade first, then the shapes on the ground, then the smell of resin and the warmth on your face, and the sound of that first slow snort in the quiet. 252 million years is not a distance, it is a depth. Everything that happened here is still directly beneath you, pressed flat, holding its shape, waiting under the ordinary ground you walk across without thinking. The animals turned toward the sun. The forests stood. The tide came in across the flats and went out and came in again. And it was not practice for anything. It was simply a morning on Earth, a very long time ago. Rest now, and if you'd like another, the channel will be waiting.